some books.
Let me do it. Never wear string. Thing I learned from my old nanny. 3 things you should always carry in your pocket, she told me. A penknife, a shilling, and a piece of string.
What for?
Well, emergencies, of course. In Cyprus, my sergeant major got his leg blown off, bleeding to death. With my bit of string, I put a tourniquet on him. Emma said it saved his life. When pyramids decay, well, they're pretty decayed when I last saw them. That was, good Lord, 30 years ago. I was a young subaltern on leave from Aden. Well, they're all the same. What on earth do you want 6 copies of the same book for? When Pyramids Decay by E.K. Hamilton. But that's,
Me? Yes.
Have you written a book? You are a dark horse. Why didn't you tell me?
I didn't think you'd be interested.
Why do you use your maiden name?
Oh, the publishers thought Eve Peregrine was a bit of a mouthful for people when they're asking for it.
You mean it's for sale? People are going to buy it?
Just a few, perhaps.
Good Lord. Did you pay to get it published?
They paid me.
I say, how much?
£500.
Oh, well, it's a bit thin. Not much work in it, I suppose. Ah, poetry.
I don't expect you to read it.
Well, not much in my line, poetry. It doesn't look like poetry. Not in verse. It's all chopped up. It doesn't seem to rhyme, either. Would you like me to read it?
You don't have to.
My dear, poetry is something with a good beat to it, like marching behind a band. The boy stood on the burning deck whence all but he had fled. And when the flames, they burnt his feet, he stood upon his head. Ha!
Afternoon, Colonel.
Was a good morning's work. Those bullocks were a good buy. Hope they do well. Not going from corn to horn, are you?
My small contribution to the beef mountain.
All these subsidies can't last. They're crazy.
Who are we to complain? How's your wife?
Oh, not too good at the moment. You know, up and down, up and down. But more down than up just now.
I'm sorry. Funny things, women, Telfer.
Indeed they are, sir. Oh, talking of subsidies, did I tell you what I'm going to do with my 100-acre this year?
Oh, no, tell me. You're not going to give up barley. Sorry to take so long. I read your book last night.
You don't have to. Look, I wouldn't have asked, only you offered. I let you off the hook, George. Don't bother. You didn't really read it, did you?
Well, first few pages, I got a bit wet looking at some heifers. Thought I had a cold coming on. So I took a couple of aspirin and a whiskey and just dropped off, to be honest. I'll take it up to town with me tomorrow.
Will you be gone long?
Well, 3 or 4 days this time. We've got a meeting of the Landowners Association. We're kicking up a stink at the ministry about common market bureaucracy.
You'll be staying at the club?
Yes, unless somebody offers to put me up. Porter will know where I am.
Porters at gentlemen's establishments are notorious for never telling ladies where their gentlemen are. Yours is frightfully well trained.
Anybody bought your book yet?
It's only been in the shops a week.
In the shops?
That's where you buy books.
You mean it might be in the windows?
Oh, I shouldn't think it's that important.
Well, just as well. The things that you see in windows nowadays.
I'm rather proud of these. They're a new hybrid.
Are very nice.
Smell.
Yes, very nice.
splendidly old-fashioned. I should be wearing a transparent negligee, have champagne in a bucket by the bed. But we have got to go, my darling, because I've managed to book a couple of seats for that musical about the French Revolution, which you'll absolutely hate, so you need to stoke yourself up on gin first. There's something for you on the table.
Very nice.
Goes with that barbarian part of you you're always trying to hide. A bit more cheery than that grubby dull thing you wear.
But this is the old school tie.
It's an old fogey tie, George. It's time you were redecorated. Now, bag, keys. Oh, George, it isn't your wife, is it, who's written this book there's such a buzz about?
What do you mean?
The Pyramids Collapse, or something. I went to an audition and 3 people were reading it. I went to my agent's, he was reading it.
Who's it by?
A woman called Hamilton. You think my agent were making commission the way he went on about her? He said her real name was Peregrine. I said, oh, I know somebody called Peregrine. He said her husband was a colonel in the army.
I'd sooner you didn't talk about me to your friends.
Oh, well, of course I wouldn't. I said it can't be the same one. Right, ready at last. Keys. Gas off. Answer phone. He said they say this colonel's a regular old stuffed shirt.
Oh, you know better than that. And if my wife had written a book, I'd be the first to know about it, wouldn't I?
George, nice to see you. That's not your usual sort of rag. Country life, farmer's weekly, or more your line.
Something caught my eye.
Don't be modest, old chap. You were swatting up on a bit of culture. What's it like being the husband of a celebrity?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Come of it, everybody knows E.K. Hamilton's your wife. It's not often that even I get to know about a book of poetry. And there's a photograph of her in the shop round the corner, looking smashing. By the way, I'm lunching with Basil Dashwood. He's not really my sort of person, but he's helping my son get into publishing. He'd love to meet you.
Who's Basil Dashwood?
Don't you have a telly in your neck of the woods? Dashwood, the critic. He runs that arts program. He wrote a rave review of Evie's book in one of the Sundays. Didn't she show it to you? Basil, this is George Peregrine. Do you remember last week I told you?
Oh, not
her husband.
How are you? Is she in town by any chance? I'd very much like to meet her.
My wife doesn't like London. She prefers the country.
I was simply knocked sideways by her book. I'd like to have her on my program.
Well, I don't think
Can't
that
go to a movie nowadays without full frontal nudity. Open a paper without sexual details that used to be unmentionable. Go to a play without streams of 4-letter words. And here's someone actually daring to write about love again. She evades nothing, obscures nothing, and still manages to make what I can only have to call, magic. Magic somehow undiminished by the plain, earthy facts of what really goes on between a man and a woman in bed.
Very good of you to say such nice things about my wife's little book. I'm sure she'll be delighted. But I have a train to catch and I want to get a bite of lunch. Do you have a copy of The Pyramids Decay?
When Pyramids Decay, sir? I'm sorry, we've completely sold out.
But I've just seen it in the window.
That's our display copy, sir. It's reprinting. We should have a large order in a couple of weeks.
People are buying it, then?
It might be a novel the way it's selling.
I thought nobody read poetry nowadays.
Well, actually, it's the story they like.
It has a story.
My wife couldn't put it down. Tragic and very sexy, she said. Obviously autobiographical.
Is there another bookshop nearby?
I doubt if you'll find a copy in London, sir.
I really had no idea. Here we have been nodding at each other for ages and ages. I simply didn't know who you were.
And I didn't know I was someone different until last week, but it seems I was.
The penalties of fame, eh? Now, I picked up the last copy in Harrods, and I have been totally immersed. I just finished when I was waiting for Cleo at the Pony Club. Here you are, darling, if you must ruin your teeth. Oh, dear. I am sure even the author wouldn't think it quite required reading at your age. Here are your dreadful horsey magazines, and much more suitable, if less sublime.
Did you write this book? Would you autograph it, please?
What shall I put?
To Cleo, with the author's compliments. Cleo's with an I.
Yes. That's the Greek muse of poetry and history. What did you like best?
Poetry.
I've put with love, too.
My dear, collecting signed first editions already. She get it from her father. He collects things. I collect people. I was wondering, Mrs. Peregrine, should I call you Miss Hamilton?
Oh, I hadn't thought. I suppose I better be Mrs. in the country and Miss in town. It feels rather disreputable. No, just Evie will do fine.
I'm Irina.
Oh. Hello.
Well, have you seen a book I left here before I went to town? Sort of porridge-coloured cover.
No, sir.
Well, there was more than one copy, 6 copies to be precise. They can't all have vanished.
Perhaps in Mrs. Peregrine's room, sir.
No, I've looked there. I've looked everywhere.
What size was the book, sir?
What sort of, this size?
Mrs. Peregrine did give me some parcels to post, sir.
Who are they addressed to?
Just people who come to the house, sir.
Local people?
I think so, sir.
Oh, God.
Anyway, they asked us to dinner next week. I made an excuse.
Why? They've never asked us before. It's the best shooting in the county. The only people who get it are Greeks and Arabs.
Oh, well, I didn't think of that. I thought it would bore you.
Did they ask us or just you?
In point of fact, they didn't ask you.
Well, I call it damn rude of them.
I suppose they thought it wouldn't be your sort of evening. Irina likes writers and people like that. She's invited Basil Dashwood, the critic. He's some sort of cousin, and he wants to meet me for some reason.
It was nice of you to refuse, Evie.
I don't suppose I'd have much in common with the sort of people who'd be there. George, I've got an awful chore to do. They've sold my book to America.
America? Well, I suppose they speak the same language.
They've sold it to Holland and Scandinavia too, but never mind. Anyway, the American publisher's coming over next week, and my publisher's giving a party for him. I'd love you to come. Moral support.
Well, it sounds a crashing bore, but if you really want me to, I'll put in an appearance.
It would be sweet of you.
Black tie, I suppose. Evie? Evie? Do get a move on, old girl. Never mind. Bunch of frauds and phoners.
I was enjoying myself.
Stop the car. I want to get out. I'm sorry, Evie. I'm going to spend the night at the club. What's a taxi?
George, whatever's happened? Have you been mugged?
Oh, not my blood. I hit somebody.
Why?
Patronizing clot. Said something absolutely foul about my wife.
How chivalrous. Do you want to stay the night? Because I won't be back until the crack of dawn. I've got a bit in a commercial. Night location on Tower Bridge.
Oh, no, I was just passing. Oh, get me a gin, for God's sake, a large one.
Are you sure? You sound to me as though you've had a few already.
Where'd you get this?
Oh, that's that book I was telling you about. Have you read it?
I couldn't get it anywhere. It's sold out.
Oh, I'm not surprised. It's marvellous. True and funny and sad. And at the beginning, she meets this man. No, I won't spoil it. You must read it properly. And not just the sexy parts. There in the middle, that's the bit everybody talks about. I don't like it so much. It's all breasts and chests and flanks and thighs and his flat belly, his beautiful legs. But then, well, he must have died because the last part's called a requiem. And it's all over. And she's alone. And just remembering. Made me cry.
Evie. Evie of all people.
Is that the cops referred to here?
Yes.
It's always easier when you see it on the ground. Well, Evie's looking well. You hardly need gardeners with all her energy. Well, I don't see any problems with this. Good thing to get it all down in writing. Diverting these old footpaths can be a problem. I'll bring it up with the council. You mustn't let Evie overdo it, you know. I'll slip that disc, pushing a barrow.
Have you read her book?
Yes. Yes, I have. Fancy Evie breaking out into poetry, eh? Wonders will never cease.
It's made me look an absolute idiot.
Oh, rubbish, George. There's no harm in her writing a book. You ought to be proud of her. Well, think of the lolly. You ought to start thinking of getting her a Swiss bank account.
It's her own story. You know that, and so does everyone else.
George, you're getting paranoid. If she'd written a romantic novel about pirates, highwaymen, you wouldn't think she'd had an affair with one.
This is not a romantic novel. It's words. Things I never thought that she... I suppose I'm the only one who doesn't know who her lover was.
Now, George, you talking to me as an old friend or as your solicitor? There's no reason to think the whole thing wasn't made up. Pure imagination.
Do you believe that? Who was the man?
I don't know. And I wouldn't tell you if I did.
I want you to get a private detective and find out.
Suppose she did have an affair. As I read it, the fellow's dead. It was all years ago, far too late to get any evidence.
I don't want evidence. I want the man's name. Get me a detective, Harry.
I won't. And if you want to do that, you better consult someone else. Have you always been faithful to her?
More or less. After all, we've been married for 24 years. She's been a damn good wife. I thought she was fond of me. She couldn't have written that book unless she hated me.
I don't think Evie is capable of hatred.
You're not going to pretend that she loves me.
No.
What does she feel for me? Indifference?
It's not uncommon in lasting marriages. I'm late.
I must know who he was.
Why don't you ask her yourself?
I'm afraid to find out.
Perhaps you have to.
One thing I'll never understand until my dying day. What in the name of heaven did that fellow ever see in her?
Why didn't Harry say goodbye? I had some cuttings for him.
Evie,
You know what I regret? When I married you, I should have grubbed out all those old ramblers and put in thornless roses. Rose without a thorn. Isn't that what Henry VIII called one of his wives? Didn't stop him having her head chopped off, though. Can you pass me the rake?
I've read your book now.
Right through.
Yes.
Look, it's all right, old thing. You don't have to say anything. I've had about 15 stunning reviews, and now the bad ones are beginning to come in. I just want to forget it.
You think I can?
Someone at that frightful party, she was a novelist. She said, people read the most extraordinary things into what you've written. If you put them in a book, they never recognize themselves. And if you put a bit of yourself in, they think the whole character's based on you. I don't think I'm cut out for the literary life. Do you know what I was thinking? Next winter, I'm going to pull out all those dreary evergreens and plant a border of white peonies. What do you think?
Who was he?
Oh, that. There's no one now.
But there was.
There was.
Is he dead?
For me, yes. For a long, long time.
What was his name?
You sure you want to know?
Yes.
Even if it hurts?
Yes.
It was you, George. You as you were. In the beginning.